want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton, and breaking tonight, a chilling establishment cover-up unravels. Dame Alison Rose admits she was the source behind the BBC's inaccurate reporting on Nigel Farage's debanking, but NatWest Group chairman Howard Davies ignores the public clamour for justice and issues an extraordinary vote of confidence in his CEO. Farage wants heads to roll.
I think at that investor statement on Friday morning, the government ought to say we have no confidence in this management. Frankly, I think they should all go.
I'll explain why woke banks must be banned from intruding in our private lives for the sake of democracy. That's in my digest next, and then my superstar panel weigh-in. And tonight, I'm joined by Baroness Foster, Ranal Jayawardena and Rebecca Reid. Esteemed biographer Tom Bauer will offer his unmissable analysis on that story later in the show too. Also on the way tonight, as a Daily Mail investigation exposes UK lawyers charging up to £10,000 to submit bogus asylum claims, are Britain's borders broken beyond repair? That's our big debate later in the show. Lawrence Fox hits out at the freebies reportedly being offered to illegal immigrants in the Fox Report too. Coming up in the clash, after Spotify posted a £34 million hit in the wake of their split from the Sussexes, are Harry and Meghan now a bad investment? Lee Cohen, Joanna Jarju and Bushra Sheikh do battle on that. Elsewhere tonight, Sadiq Khan's anti-misogyny campaign has caused a stir for all the wrong reasons, as it's slammed as a patronising waste of taxpayer money.
She ghosted me. Probably wouldn't know a good thing if it slapped her in the face. Something I'd gladly do if I see her again. Mate.
So is it just a virtue signaling attempt at social engineering, or a genuine bid to end sexism? We'll get stuck into the failed London Mayor's latest cringeworthy campaign in the media buzz. And box office hit Barbie has been branded man-hating propaganda by some, but will Disney's Snow White remake be the next victim of Hollywood woke-washing?
Does mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
Megastar US journalist Megyn Kelly unleashes on that soon. As always, tomorrow's newspaper front page is on the way too, and cannot wait for this. Former Mumford & Sons guitarist turned freedom fighter Winston Marshall live in the studio too. This is Dan Wootton tonight. Let's go. You're watching GB News, Britain's news channel. Massive developments in the unravelling saga between NatWest, Coots and Nigel Farage. My view straight after the headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. Good evening. Well, the top story tonight on GB News is that the CEO of NatWest has this evening admitted to a serious error of judgment in discussing Nigel Farage's Coots' bank account with a BBC journalist. Yesterday, the BBC was forced to apologise for its story, led by business editor Simon Jacks, after it incorrectly reported the reason for Mr Farage's bank account closure being because it held insufficient funds. Mr Farage uncovered, though, through a subject access request, that this was untrue and that his account had been closed because of his political views. The bank issued a statement this evening stating that they, however, thought that after careful reflection, they had full confidence in Dame Alison Rose in her position as CEO. Well, more on that in Dan Wootton's programme coming up shortly. In Greece, we now know that 3 people lost their lives after an aircraft crashed while fighting wildfires this afternoon. The plane was fighting wildfires on the island of Evia. If you're watching on television, you can see the plane dropping water across an area of blaze before crashing behind a hillside. Local media reported the body of a 41-year-old man who'd been missing since Sunday has been found. Wildfires have consumed parts of Greece for 7 days, forcing residents to retreat to shelters along the coast. Greece's Prime Minister, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, says there's no magic defence against climate change. Meanwhile, south of Greece in Algeria, the number of deaths because of wildfires has risen now to 34, including 10 soldiers. 8,000 firefighters have been working to bring the blazes under control. In Italy, wildfires forced the temporary closure of Sicily's Palermo airport, with only a limited number of flights given permission to take off. It's since reopened. And in Tunisia, families have been forced to flee their villages after wildfires burn across mountain regions. The authorities there are trying to get out at least 2,500 people from the affected areas. HSBC says it'll cut its interest rates from tonight, making it the first high street bank to act following last week's better-than-expected inflation figures. The bank told GBNews the new rates will come into effect from midnight tonight. It comes after figures last week showed inflation is at a 16-month low in the year to June. On TV, online, DAB+ radio and the TuneIn app. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The Nigel Farage Coots scandal is just the opening salvo in the fight of our lives to stop the UK creeping towards a Chinese-style social credit system where our behaviours and political ideologies are monitored and judged by woke corporations, globalist institutions and potentially soon a socialist government. And be very concerned. This isn't some sort of far-fetched dystopian prospect. We're already getting there. So take the chilling revelation today that the UK's 4 biggest banks, NatWest, Lloyds, HSBC and Barclays, all refuse to deny that they monitor their own customers on social media. Their complicated privacy policies, you know, the ones that, you know, go on for 13 pages and you're forced to sign before taking an account, allow for such an approach, but that doesn't make it right. So, for example, NatWest, the parent company of Farage Bank Coots, says it can gather information that you make public on social media in its 13-page policy document. The Lloyds policy, which also covers Halifax and the Bank of Scotland, says it can collect information from published media as well as social networks. And HSBC, which you might remember shut my business bank account with no explanation, is even worse. They say they can monitor information that relates to your social interactions, such as your communications via social media between individuals, organisations and prospects. Why? Why? What right does a bank have to know anything about what views I'm expressing? The rule of law is already in place to protect against money laundering and that sort of thing, so no wonder terrified businesses are slowly edging towards groupthink to avoid any trouble. At least the government is demanding answers, with Michael Gove making that clear this morning as pressure builds on the NatWest chairman, Sir Howard Davies, should launch some sort of inquiry into Dame Alison Rose.
But I definitely think that he was owed an apology. He's got one, but I think that the company has further to go in order to make sure that this matter ends appropriately.
And breaking tonight, Howard Davies has ignored those calls and offered his full backing to the CEO, Dame Alison Rose. In a board statement, he said, as Dame Rose recognises she should not have spoken in the way she did, this was a regrettable error of judgment on her part. However, after careful reflection, the board has concluded that it retains full confidence in her as the CEO. Now, that extraordinary vote of confidence comes despite Rose's admission that she was the source behind the BBC business editor Simon Jack's fake news about Farage's debanking. So this is what she's had to say. Believing it was public knowledge, I repeated what Mr Farage had already stated, that the bank saw this as a commercial decision. I would like to emphasise that in responding to Mr Jack's questions, I did not reveal any personal financial information about Mr Farage. Put simply, I was wrong to respond to any question raised by the BBC about this case. I want to extend my sincere apologies to Mr Farage for the personal hurt this has caused him. But on his show earlier tonight, Nigel called for Davies, Rose, and the Coutts chief executive, Peter Flavel, who has yet to break his deafening silence, has ignored Farage. He called for all three of them to go.
But it is perfectly clear to me that Peter Flavel, the CEO of Coutts, has not done his job in any way at all. Perfectly clear to me that Alison Rose is unfit to be the CEO of a big group, and that Howard Davies, who is supposed to be in charge of governance, has failed as well. Given that we have a 39% stake in this, we, the great British public, I think at that investor statement on Friday morning, the government ought to say we have no confidence in this management. Frankly, I think they should all go.
While it took the bravery of Farage to speak out to expose the scandal in the first place, the chilling impact of the behaviour by Coutts is that most people will simply keep stum. Why risk our livelihood? Why risk our ability to run our businesses simply for expressing an opinion? And the consequences of that for democracy and freedom of speech in what are febrile times, well, I think it's grave. But to respond now, tonight's superstar panel. Conservative peer Baroness Foster, former Conservative Cabinet Minister Ranil Jayawardena, and the best-selling author Rebecca Reed. Baroness Foster, so lots breaking on this over the past couple of hours. Farage says all three executives should go. Apparently lots of pressure coming from within the Cabinet for at least Rose to fall on her sword. What do you think should happen here?
I completely agree. I think she should have offered her resignation once it was made clear it was her that was actually the person that spoke to the media. Mm-hmm. I think also that Howard Davies's position is untenable. So the fact that they've not gone yet, it doesn't mean to say that they will be forced to go at some stage.
And what about Flavel, the chief executive of Coutts, who has totally stonewalled Farage on this?
Apparently, I don't think he's even replied to any communication from Nigel Farage at all. And I think, if I may say, as the 36%, I think we have a 36% shareholder, the government, the public. The next time that they have their shareholders meeting, I think that we should insist our representative from the government that they resign too. You know, what with this, and then the second stage, we're looking at some of the reasons now on social media in terms of confidentiality. Now we know we have bank accounts and we have people trawling all over every single tweet we may make.
And preparing reports, 40-page reports, Ranil. I mean, why does a bank, seriously, why should a bank have any interest in my political views on what I post on social media? Why?
I agree with you. It's extraordinary. There's absolutely no reason why banks should do anything else other than keep your money safe and lend you money if you want to borrow it. And, you know, people across the corporate sector, I think, just need to get back to basics, which is to focus on the business that they're there to run, not this sort of this woke agenda which has infiltrated and infected so many different parts of the establishment. The idea that there should be some sort of social credit system in banks or indeed elsewhere in the services that we all rely on is absolutely unacceptable. And, you know, I think people need to vote with their feet. This isn't going to be resolved by government. It's not going to be resolved by more law. I think laws have got us into this mess, actually. It's going to be resolved by, I think, people taking a stand. And, you know, I think Nigel Farage doing this, he is doing exactly the right thing, but he's also very lucky that he's got the platform to do it. Many others wouldn't have the chance.
Most people don't. Rebecca Reed, you don't agree. You think it's OK for banks to go snooping around customers' social media? Why?
If you make something public on social media, I don't know whether anybody else was like trying to get into university in the noughties, but they sit you all down and they're like, anything you put on Facebook, universities can see and use to not give you an offer. Now, that obviously wasn't true because I didn't have the time, but I've been taught since I was a small child, anything you put on the internet, you are responsible for. If you put something on the internet, you have to answer for it. If you put a view on the internet, a business has a right, I believe, to say, I don't want to work with you. And I think we can all agree that there are some views that you would say, OK, this person is not inclined to have my business. So I would not take a commission from somebody, for instance, who was actively racist. I have the right to do that. And I think what this is about is where the line is about what's an acceptable view and what's not.
We know what's happening here. This is only about centre-right views. No corporations has any problem with people expressing left-wing views.
You're absolutely right. If you have done something illegal, if I was on Facebook and I am indicating that I am a supporter of terrorism, then I think that's a serious... I mean, that would probably be possibly referred to the police. But most of the things on Facebook or on Twitter that most of us in politics and often in business are doing is obviously arguing or debating about our...
in the online public square.
Well, but this is the point, isn't it? That's illegal. And it's for the police to investigate. It's not for banks or, you know...
But the banks have a right.
Why should they make
it's not
moral
for anyone.
judgments?
I mean, why shouldn't you be able to shop at Tesco next, you know, if you hold a certain type of view? I mean, it's extraordinary
I personally believe that any business should have the right to refuse you anything that they are providing as a commercial service.
If you are behaving lawfully.
If you are behaving in a way that they find distasteful.
But if you're behaving lawfully...
Yeah, I do. I think absolutely.
Even if they're behaving lawfully.
In the same way that I think it's perfectly reasonable when people don't want to make cakes for gay weddings, I think it's dreadful, but I think you have a right to refuse your service to anybody if you are a business.
So I should be barred from Tesco because I'm a Conservative?
No, but... I mean, I don't think you're that bad of a Conservative, so I think you can still...
I'll try harder.
I imagine as a Tory you're going to Waitrose anyway.
We've got a lovely new Sainsbury's, I should say.
Tesco's at the end of my road and I'm a Tory. But the thing is, you used the word they, what they think. Now, the question then is, who are they?
Brexiteers, 52% of the country.
But nobody has had their
but she's saying they make the judgment whether or not...
Did you read the dossier into Nigel Farage? You know, one of the things that they used to put him as some sort of terrible human being was the fact that he retweeted a joke by Ricky Gervais. Rebecca, this is chilling. It is a chilling attack on free speech. And even if you disagree with Farage, you should stand by him here.
No, because he's a bloody hypocrite. He is out there every single week being like, anti-cancel culture, anti-cancel culture.
Oh,
someone does something mean to me. 3 people should lose their jobs, 2 of whom didn't actually do anything.
Well, he is calling for
and he is now out there calling for cancel culture. If I had a bank, I wouldn't give Corbyn a bank account, no, because I find his anti-Semitism abhorrent. You don't agree with his... You don't think that his anti-Semitism was abhorrent? You don't think Jeremy Corbyn's anti-Semitism was abhorrent?
I have spoken about Jeremy Corbyn's anti-Semitism for years. I believe Jeremy Corbyn deserves a right for a bank account. Unless the police say that Jeremy Corbyn has broken the law, he has a right for a bank account. Just like I believe the Borough Media had a right to have a YouTube account.
Would you lend Jeremy Corbyn 100 quid?
And this is the difference between the left and the right.
Would you lend him money?
This is the fundamental difference between the left and the right. The right stand up for free speech. We stand up for free speech. It doesn't matter whether it's on the left or the right.
Having said he was anti-cancel culture, he is a hypocrite.
Can I just come in, Rebecca?
Yes, final word.
You talked about people being cancelled. I mean, you have people as well known as J.K. Rowling and other people who are perfectly respectable people who have said something that a group of activists have disagreed with.
Well, according to Coots, she would be debanked.
Yeah,
she would be debanked. By the Farage doctrine of Coots, she would be debanked.
That you would think it was OK. I mean, I have little in common with Jeremy Corbyn. I abhor his views and his anti-Semitic views. that he espoused for so long, and other members of the Labour Party. Would I sit here and say he shouldn't have a bank account? Of course I would.
No, but I would say that if I ran a bank, it would be my choice to not give him an account.
I will defend the right.
And do you know what? And you have just summed up, Baroness Foster, you've just summed up the difference here between the left and the right. So that's a good point to end it, I think. Ranald Jayawardena, Rebecca Reid, my superstar panel, with me all night, but also on the way. With migrants on the BBC Stockholm barge to get free cricket and festival excursions, why is the UK government rolling out the red carpet at the taxpayers' expense? Lawrence Fox is investigating this, and the Fox report soon. But next in the clash, this was extraordinary. Spotify taking a £34 million hit in the wake of the split with the Sussexes. So if Harry and Meghan just become a bad investment, Joanna Jaju, Bushra Sheikh, Lee Cohen do battle on this. What do you think? Dan at GBNews.com. Our poll running on Twitter. We're back straight after this.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nah, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Lawrence Fox and Megyn Kelly both on the way this hour. But first, the clash. An extraordinary news today. Spotify has taken a £34 million hit after making heavy cutbacks in their podcasting division, including terminating their contract with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. The Duchess worked with the streaming giant to release her podcast Archetypes, and last month the couple were cut loose from a monster £16 million deal, with one Spotify boss lamenting their costly mistake and labelling the pair effing grifters. So tonight, simple question, after this really mind-blowing figure from Spotify, have Harry and Meghan become a bad investment? Dan at GBNews.com. vote in our poll at GBNews on Twitter. Debate this now. Social commentator, big supporter of Harry and Meghan, Joanna Jarju, the political commentator, Bushra Sheikh, and former congressional staffer joining us from the US, Lee Cohen. So, Lee, look, I mean, a £34 million hit for Spotify. Not all of that is down to Harry and Meghan, but a big portion is. So what do you make of how they're going to be viewed stateside now?
Well, Dan, this is a case of last year's Tinseltown darlings are today's Hollywood flops. The last years of the beloved Queen should have been filled with nothing but warmth and gratitude, and the King's new reign should be filled with anticipation and hope. Some of us will never forgive the Sussexes for instead making two reigns tense and turbulence, but for all its glitter, Hollywood is a business that cares only about the bottom line. What have you done for me lately? And Harry and Meghan have come up short. They've come up short on production of content, good perception of value. They don't seem to provide the necessary ROI to be good investments.
Joanna Jarju, you disagree?
If there are changes from Spotify's point of view, then that's bad negotiation from their point of view. Like you said, Dan, it's not just Harry and Meghan that have impacted this. It's also other people that have been, really successful productions for them, like Joe Rogan's podcast, which has been, globally quite popular, just as Harry and Meghan have been globally quite popular as well. So if there hasn't been enough return on investment from Spotify, then it's because maybe they were so desperate to sign the couple up that they didn't negotiate hard enough. It's got nothing to do with Meghan and Harry's popularity. If anything, Meghan's Archwell Productions podcast actually showed how popular she is when she beat Joe Rogan to the top spot. So it's nothing to do with their popularity.
Archetypes was the name of the podcast. I think you are being slightly misrepresentative, though, in terms of the success of Joe Rogan. I mean, Meghan's podcast had a very quick rise. Rogan delivers week after week after week and has been a huge success story for Spotify.
Let's be honest though, Dan. Joe Rogan's podcast has been going for many years, and he is a very experienced podcast host. But when it comes to Meghan, it was her launch, and she beat him to the top spot, and that has to say something. And I think a lot of people, live in this little bubble where they think that, there's a massive group, yes, within the United Kingdom that really dislike Meghan, but she also has a massive global reach, and we have to keep that in mind.
Okay, well, let me bring Bushra Sheikh on this. Bushra, who are you siding with? Are you siding with Joanna or are you siding with Lee?
I'm going to side with Lee on this one. I feel like people do have a sense of fatigue when it comes to Harry and Meghan, unfortunately. Look, Harry was and is still part of the royal family. He's the one that holds the cards, but then he cut those ties off, and now Lee's absolutely right. What content and what relevance are they bringing to the table? Besides the fact that Meghan is one of the, a few American actresses on TV, besides that she hasn't really brought anything to the table. And Spotify know when they've got good deals. As far as they're concerned, they're not seeing this as the best investment they could have. Otherwise, they would have negotiated harder for it. They know that people are getting bored of this story. They're not bringing much to the table anymore. So why are we going to give them the slot?
Joanna? Oh, we'll just bring Joanna back. Joanna, can you respond?
Can I finish, Dan? Can I just finish? But realistically, if we actually have a look at this, like you said at the top of the program, this isn't just down to Meghan and Harry. No. So something is happening within Spotify's production podcast department that hasn't been right. So it's a bad business deal, yes, for them in terms of podcasts in general. Maybe they overestimated how much, return they would get from podcasts in general, but it has nothing to do with Meghan and Harry specifically. If you're going to have the conversation and be, genuine about
Lee's
it,
shaking
then
his head.
talk about podcasts
Lee's
across the
shaking
board.
his head. Lee, why are you shaking your head?
Dan, the chief executive of United Talent Agency said, it turns out Megyn was not a great audio talent or necessarily any kind of talent. So I'm sorry, but what she just said is completely wrong because it is completely on Meghan and Harry.
Bushra?
Absolutely. I think people get the first opportunity to prove themselves. And I think if Spotify thought that this was going to be a brilliant deal, they would have done everything that they could to give them another series on the podcast. But clearly they just don't think that that's the case. So although, Joanne, I understand what you're saying, but these guys have been in the business for a long time and they know what sells and what brings in the returns. They're not going to say no or say, no, we don't want it just on the basis that, let's say, perhaps they find them grifters. Because a lot of people do see them as grifters right now, unless they bring some really good content to the table.
Yes, Joanna, final word.
Can I actually also say that when you look at Spotify overall as a business, they've been making cutbacks even when it comes to staff. So there is a business issue deeper that's happening with Spotify, and you can't just pretend as if just because they've let two of their
I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that. Spotify overspent in the podcast market, but I do think they significantly overspent on Harry and Meghan in a way that they didn't on Joe Rogan, who has proven he's a hard worker. He'll deliver the goods week after week after week, and that's what you need in this business. But Joanna Jarju, Bushra Sheikh, Lee Cohen, fascinating debate. Who do you agree with on this? Naomi on Twitter writes, £14 million. 12 episodes, £1 million an episode. We know why they are struggling. Can you imagine people paying that much with no experience? Sean writes, they were bad investments even before they were married. No wonder Spotify and Netflix hike their subscription prices up because they have lost out with these two. And Angela writes, Spotify were greedy enough to throw money at two people lacking in any real talent. They have only themselves to blame. Your verdict is in. 89% of you agree the Sussexes were a bad investment, just 11% of you saying it was right. Now, coming up, freedom fighter Winston Marshall and the formidable Tom Bower are on the way, reacting to this breaking news tonight. All of the developments is kicking off with Coots and Farage. First, though, the weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your GB News weather forecast. Well, the next few days it's set to remain unsettled across the UK, further spells of rain, but in between we will see some sunshine. Reason for the unsettled conditions is these two areas of low pressure, really not going to go very far over the next few days. And with a northerly wind, it's going to feel pretty chilly at times, especially by night under some clearer skies. But for parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, actually tonight, we will remain fairly cloudy here with some outbreaks of rain. But elsewhere, relatively dry and clear, and as I mentioned, under the clear skies, feeling pretty chilly for this point in the year. Towns and cities staying in double figures, but out towards the countryside, we could see lows falling down to around 5 to 6 degrees. But compensation will be, for most of us, we'll start the day with some sunshine on Wednesday. Still this area of cloud and showers across parts of southern Scotland and northern England, and that will continue to linger here for much of the day. But elsewhere, as I mentioned, some sunshine. But for Northern Ireland, cloud will thicken as the morning goes on, with some rain arriving here by lunchtime, and the cloud and rain also spreading into parts of Wales and southwest England as the afternoon goes on. So here, we've combined with a strengthening wind, feeling pretty chilly as the afternoon moves in. But elsewhere in the sunshine, not feeling too bad for the time of year, with temperatures around average. And then as we go into Thursday, this band of rain will sweep its way across the UK, bringing further spells of showers behind it, and temperatures all the time near average.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Coming up, as the new Barbie and Snow White films are slammed for being anti-men, is anything sacred from Hollywood's woke-washing US media superstar Megyn Kelly gives her unmissable report shortly. But next, hiking, cycling, onboard gyms, cricket, and even festival excursions. Migrants will be treated to all of that on the Bibi Stockholm barge. So does our government not know the meaning of deterrent? Lawrence Fox, he's investigating this in the Fox Report straight after the break.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point, but
And action.
Sergeant, the big green, my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Media megastar Megyn Kelly joins me live from the States soon with breaking news on Ron DeSantis. But now it's time for the Fox Report with our very own Lawrence Fox, who's back in the house. And the BBC Stockholm is said to become the first barge to house migrants in Britain this week. And the 500 young men due to live on board will see the red carpet rolled out for them at the taxpayers' expense. Migrants on the controversial vessel will be treated to free hiking, cycling, cricket and festival excursions, as well as on-board sports, gyms and a 24-hour restaurant service. They will also be able to come and go from the site as they please, with free taxis due to be laid on if they miss the last boat home. The Home Office has responded saying what we want here is for people to feel like they are part of a wider community and not restricted to being here. But Lawrence, some folks say that actually this won't provide a deterrent to small boat crossings. You've been investigating. What have you found out, Lawrence?
I don't think we're doing enough, Dan. I think we need to build a bridge from France to Britain and we need to put a red carpet across it and say welcome. And I think we need an open-top bus to greet everybody when they arrive, to drive them across all of the landmarks of the UK for free. I don't think we're doing enough to say, you know, Britain is a warm and welcoming, tolerant country. Sorry, I'm cold. It's the global warming's getting me, so I'm just trying to stay warm at the moment.
Yeah, it's certainly not hot in the UK at the moment, is it, Lawrence? So look, what is your proposal, though? Because, of course, the Home Office would say, well, at this point, we don't know if these folk are genuine asylum seekers or illegal migrants.
Well, you know, they are. Britain should have no borders. We should welcome everybody. There should be no British nationals. We shouldn't have a country. We should have no borders. You know this. I know this. We should welcome everybody. Because it doesn't matter what your background is or what, you know, just come.
So you just think this is effectively the government thrown in the towel now?
Yeah. I mean, look, we've given up on this country. And no Conservative Party or Labour Party is going to stop it. So we're in trouble. I would suggest that we're in a bit of trouble here. But you know, why are we not turning around and going, we want highly skilled, brilliant people in this country who can add something to the economy, rather than just going, welcome to the barge. Let's have a ticket to Lord's Taverners, and you know, let's go to Ascot for the day. It's completely ridiculous. No wonder they don't stop in France when you can get a freebie in England. It's silly.
Lawrence, a row was broken out online over this incident in Sheffield, where a 65-year-old trans woman lashed out after a hotel spa employee offered them a key to the unisex changing rooms rather than the females. So taking to Twitter, Anne Coombs wrote, "Turns out the assistant had assumed I wanted the unisex changing room with me dressed like this." And I presume we've got the picture to show of what Anne was dressed like. OK, so there she goes. She now demands the employee in question is sent on a diversity, equality and inclusion course. But not everyone agrees, Lawrence. The former Olympic swimmer, Sharon Davies, has responded, your male used the changing rooms with other males. So, Lawrence, should we be sending those workers who misgender trans people on sensitivity courses?
Well, Sharon Davies is obviously a dreadful transphobe and should be cancelled, along with everybody else who does not see Anne as the beautiful woman that she is. And, you know, this channel is appalling for the way that it treats. That's what my piano teacher used to dress like that. So to be so transphobic, Sharon should be cancelled. And I would suggest you cancel her tonight on television live.
We will never do that to Sharon Davies. Tongue firmly in cheek there, Lawrence, I understand. Now, look, 2023, my goodness, literary censorship all over, right? So we've seen Roald Dahl, Ian Fleming, Enid Blyton, all being rewritten, and now the latest victim is the Beano. Can you believe this, Lawrence? So 5 new characters are going to be introduced, complete with hijabs and wheelchairs, and an attempt to appeal to modern readers. The Beano's creative director, Mike Sterling, had responded to accusations of going woke by saying, "We've never seen that as a pejorative term. It's awareness and being awake to things." So, Lawrence, is this awareness or just another example of the destruction of our classics?
I'm just appalled that the hijab-wearing person wasn't also in a wheelchair. Because...
Well, that's probably coming next.
As far as inclusivity is concerned, that's appalling, because surely to represent hijab-wearing persons of colour in wheelchairs would be what I would be looking for as far as inclusivity is concerned. So I just see it again as another example of systemic racism in the system of the United Kingdom, and I hope we can do better.
Nothing is safe, is it, Lawrence?
No, well, I mean, the only thing that is safe is me in this jacket, because the global warming, which is killing me as we speak, and all of us, I just have to have this on all the time.
I mean, it literally, it hasn't even felt like summer, has it, Lawrence, here? Hasn't even felt like summer. I was freezing yesterday. I needed to put a jacket on.
I love the fact that what I've done, I've been double jabbed for global warming, but I'm going to take a booster to see if I can heat up a bit.
Lawrence Fox, he's back. But by the way, Lawrence, were you glad that you ran in the by-election? What went down? I hear the BBC said that they wouldn't have even put you on the screen if you'd won.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's face it, chances of me winning were not massive. Do I look like I want to belong on a green bench in this country? The BBC are the most vile, and I say this is my opinion, Dan, so you're not going to get in trouble. My opinion is the BBC are an election rigging outfit like CNN in America. And I hope that the government, if they want to get the Conservative part of the Uni Party who want to get rid of this stuff, say that the BBC should be put in the private sector. They're a completely biased, woke, ridiculous organisation. And congratulations to you for getting such good viewing figures and for manfully getting your way through what is a tough time for you, because I know what it's like being cancelled, and it's hard work, and you're not going to lose it. You're going to fight on, my brother.
Thank you so much, Lawrence. And of course, you know, both sides of the argument here on GB News, Lawrence, and I'm sure that if we had gone to the BBC, they would say that they report elections impartially, but we will have that debate. I'm happy to have that debate another time, because you were recounting your experience of a BBC producer telling you that they wouldn't put you on air regardless of your results. So we'll keep coming back to that. But Lawrence Fox, great to have you back. Thank you very much. Coming up, a Daily Mail investigation uncovers UK lawyers charging up to £10,000 to submit false asylum claims for illegal immigrants. So Britain's borders broken beyond repair. We're going to discuss that shocking story in the media buzz. The next, box office hit Barbie has been branded man-hating propaganda by some. But will Disney's Snow White remake become the next victim of Hollywood woke-washing megastar? US journalist Megyn Kelly joins me live to report straight after this.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners on TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my new show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m, where real people get to meet those in power and hold them to account. Every week, we'll be hearing your views from up and down the country in the real world. Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's Megyn Kelly time now, and Hollywood continues suffering the woke mind virus with growing outrage over a politically correct rewriting of the kids' classic Snow White on the big screen that dunks on the brave Prince Charming and portrays the princess as someone who refuses to be saved by a man.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true.
Now, this is the latest film coming from woke Disney, set for release next year. They've also swapped the magic of the original kids' fairy tale with serious discussions about consent stemming from the famous kiss scene. Apparently no dwarfs either. And it's no surprise, given that Snow White writer Greta Gerwig is the director of this reimagining of the Barbie doll on screen too, which critics have slammed this week as man-hating propaganda. So, Megyn Kelly, why do you think liberal filmmakers just seem determined to woke-wash everything precious, including classics like Snow White and Barbie?
I mean, honestly, these women's idea of what female empowerment looks like is like something you might hear from a bunch of 9th grade girls at an all-girls woke New York City school, like the one we fled. It has to come at the expense of men. You see, and now this is the messaging. If these people hate stay-at-home mothers, they hate them. They love any woman that looks like Hillary Clinton and wants to follow the path that she followed. And for a while there, they loved somebody like me, right? It was like, oh, okay, there she is. She's a strong woman. She's out there. But, oh, wait, you might be a Republican, forget it. Or you might want to stay home with your kids, forget it. You have to be out there eschewing true love, eschewing being home with your family and loving them and raising them in order to earn the love of Disney and the people who make these films. I mean, what do they say? Look at her proudly saying she won't be dreaming about true love. Well, then this is a lie, because every woman on earth dreams about true love. I'm sorry, but that's true. You can be a leader, you can have your own company, you can be a CEO, and you all want true love too. We all want that. I was thinking about this, Dan. You know, just this past weekend on Sunday, I have 3 kids. They're 13, 12, and 10. My little guy turned 10 on Sunday. Oh. And I posted this picture of the 2 of us in this like great embrace, my sweet Thatcher. There's no substitute for that. That's true love. You know how you get that? You find somebody, you partner with them, you create a life together, you build a family. There is nothing in my life, no big paycheck, no power, no forum large enough, no company successful enough that will ever compare to that moment and the world that I have built inside my home. But according to Snow White and these morons up here who know nothing, from whom you played the soundbite, that's worth nothing. I need to be a CEO. I need to be the leader I can be, trying to find my own agency in order for me to be happy. It's a lie. It's a bill of goods. You don't have to choose. But if you must, choose love. That's going to make you a lot happier than your life as a hedge fund manager bringing in millions.
Indeed. And the thing that's so sad, isn't it, is that, you know, tell your news story if you want, but don't change the classics. And I find it hilarious, Megyn, that apparently there's all of this back and forth and hand-wringing over the fact that the prince won't be able to kiss the sleeping Snow White because he isn't able to seek consent. I mean, come on, that's the key moment, right? That's the key moment of Snow White.
Of course. I mean, it's so absurd, Dan. And the fact that they've gotten rid of the dwarves. To whom exactly were the dwarves offensive? I realized the most famous dwarf, Peter Dinklage, made some snarky comment back in 2022 about the fact they've got the dwarves living in caves. They don't live in a cave, first of all. What was wrong with the dwarves? They didn't portray the dwarves as a bunch of losers or, you know, perverts. They were nice. They're named like Happy. There's no problem with the dwarves. And why did they have to go? Because one dwarf said he was offended by it? Why? Because he's trying to ruin the acting opportunities for every dwarf in Hollywood other than himself? Well, that was uncharitable. Nobody needed to listen to that. So the dwarves had to go, except for one. Well, what sense does that make? The one dwarf, maybe they kept Happy. They get rid of Dopey? That was offensive for a different reason. This pleases absolutely no one, and Hollywood will not stop. You know, Disney is doing this. Barbie now is said to be all about fighting the patriarchy. We've had movie after movie, The Little Mermaid too, both in The Little Mermaid and in Snow White. They had to get rid of the white leads. White people are offensive. Our white skin in and of itself is offensive, whether it's on a mermaid in Little Mermaid or if it's on a princess whose name is literally Snow White. We're all supposed to say that's fine that our white skin was too offensive for you. I had to recast it with a person of color. But the dwarfs, they had to go, right? It's like, I don't understand any of the rules. I just know I don't like it. I don't want their politics in my movies. I don't want to take my kids to these movies. And it's one of the reasons why Disney is having such a backlash against it.
Indeed.
For the first time in a real long time.
Which actually relates to the bit of politics that I want to talk to you about, Megyn, because, of course, the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, who has been on this battle with Disney, has been overtaken as Donald Trump's main rival for the Republican Party nomination ahead of next year's elections. You have bagged a big interview with DeSantis on your show. You've been working on this for a long time. He's only just agreed. So why is he sitting down with you now? And what has gone wrong with his campaign that lots of US political observers are saying is basically over?
It's just hitting the news tonight, the New York Times and elsewhere, that he's had to cut 1/3 of his campaign staff, something like 38 positions. He's running out of money because he's spending it so quickly. And it hasn't gotten him anywhere in the polls. There's one poll that shows him in third place now, behind Trump, of course, who's number one, 30 points ahead. And number two, Vivek Ramaswamy, independent businessman.
Wow.
All the others show DeSantis in the second position, but Vivek is right behind him. I mean, it's neck and neck now for number two, but no one's anywhere near Trump. So the discussion about number two is kind of, okay, whatever. I mean, Trump is 30 to 40 points ahead. And the question is, what is the plan for these guys to overtake him? You can't just wish it. You can't depend on the prosecutions. Those cases are likely not even going to be tried until after the election, realistically. You're going to have to come up with a way to take over Donald Trump. And it doesn't involve sitting back and saying how great he is, which is kind of the way most of these other candidates have approached it. That's just one of the many things we're going to be talking about when I sit with the governor in Tallahassee, Florida this week.
OK, so we're going to be able to see the interview this week?
Friday.
And you've said it's going to be tough, right?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. It's not going to be a jugular, removal. I don't want to. No. I want to be fair to him and his fans, but I'm going to ask him all the tough questions that people want answered. I'm going to ask him all the things that are on your mind right now, like what about this, what about that? I'm thinking the same things you're thinking, and I'm not afraid to go there.
Cannot wait. I mean, look, I like the guy. I really like the guy. Fascinated to see it. And, of course, that's extra good reason to sign up tonight for the Megyn Kelly show via YouTube or as a podcast, because that big interview with Ron DeSantis coming on Friday. We'll speak about it next week. Megyn Kelly, good luck. Can't wait to see it. Thank you so much.
Good to see you, my friend.
Great to see you, Megyn. Thank you. Now, coming up, as NatWest Chief Executive Dame Alison Rose admits she was the source behind the BBC's inaccurate reporting on Nigel Farage's debanking, but fails to resign, two heads need to roll over this sinister establishment plot. The once cancelled Mumford & Sons musician Winston Marshall offers his analysis live in the studio soon. But next, Britain's borders pimped out for £10,000 a pop as UK lawyers are exposed for submitting false asylum claims for illegal migrants in exchange for cash. Are we fighting a losing battle in the Channel? My superstar panel return to debate that shortly. Plus, we're going to have a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages hot off the press. Don't go anywhere. We're back very soon.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GBNews.
Hello there, welcome to your GB News weather forecast. Well, the next few days it's set to remain unsettled across the UK. Further spells of rain, but in between we will see some sunshine. Reason for the unsettled conditions is these two areas of low pressure. Really not going to go very far over the next few days. And with a northerly wind, it's going to feel pretty chilly at times, especially by night under some clearer skies. But for parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, actually tonight, we will remain fairly cloudy here with some outbreaks of rain. But elsewhere, relatively dry and clear, and as I mentioned, under the clear skies, feeling pretty chilly for this point in the year. Towns and cities staying in double figures, but out towards the countryside, we could see lows falling down to around 5 to 6 degrees.
But compensation will be, for most of us, we'll start the day with some sunshine on Wednesday. Still this area of cloud and showers across parts of southern Scotland and northern England, and that will continue to linger here for much of the day. But elsewhere, as I mentioned, some sunshine. But for Northern Ireland, cloud will thicken as the morning goes on, with some rain arriving here by lunchtime, and the cloud and rain also spreading into parts of Wales and southwest England as the afternoon goes on. So here, we've combined with a strengthening wind, feeling pretty chilly as the afternoon moves in. But elsewhere in the sunshine, not feeling too bad for the time of year, with temperatures around average. And then as we go into Thursday, this band of rain will sweep its way across the UK, bringing further spells of showers behind it, and temperatures all the time near average.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton, and breaking tonight. NatWest CEO Dame Alison Rose has confirmed she was the source for the BBC's incorrect story on Nigel Farage's bank accounts, but has refused to resign after receiving backing from her board. So, with this chilling establishment plot finally being unmasked, former Mumford & Sons musician Winston Marshall, who was himself cancelled for challenging the woke orthodoxy, joins me live in the studio to give his reaction. Plus, a shocking undercover investigation from the Daily Mail has exposed lefty lawyers for abusing and cheating the British legal system by training illegal migrants to tell lies to remain in the country. I'll respond to this national disgrace alongside my superstar panel next. And tonight, I'm joined by Baroness Jacqueline Foster, Ranil Jayawardena and Rebecca Reid. Elsewhere tonight, after the damage caused by Harry and Meghan, is King Charles about to save the international future of the monarchy with a blitz of Commonwealth tours by senior royals? Esteemed biographer Tom Bauer tackles that later. And in a cringeworthy campaign, failed London Mayor Sadiq Khan says we can stop sexism by saying mate.
She ghosted me. Probably wouldn't know a good thing if it slapped her in the face. Something I'd gladly do if I see her again. Mate!
A feminist campaigner has called that patronising, totally inadequate and a waste of public money. But what do you think? We'll debate in the media buzz And unfazed by the climate doom-mongering, Michael Gove says he's heading to Greece next week. But should he be cancelling his holiday plans? We'll decide in tonight's Union Jackass and Greatest Britain. First look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages in just a couple of minutes, straight after the news headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. Well, the top story tonight, the CEO of NatWest has admitted to a serious error of judgment in discussing Nigel Farage's Coutts bank account with a BBC journalist. Yesterday, the BBC was forced to apologise for its story, led by business editor Simon Jacks, after it incorrectly reported the reason for Mr Farage's bank account closure being because it held insufficient funds. But Mr Farage uncovered through a subject access request that this was untrue and that his account had been closed because of his political views. Well, the bank issued a statement this evening stating they had considered Dame Alison Rose's statement, but after careful reflection had reviewed that they have full confidence in her position as CEO. More on that in Dan's programme coming up. Now let's turn our attentions to Greece, where 3 people have lost their lives as a result of the wildfires there, including 2 pilots on board an aircraft that was fighting the flames. The plane crashed behind a hillside on the island of Evia whilst it was attempting to drop water on the flames. And local media have said the body of a 41-year-old farmer who'd been missing since Sunday has also been found today. Wildfires have consumed parts of Greece for 7 consecutive days, forcing residents to retreat to shelters along the coast. The authorities have evacuated close to 3,000 holidaymakers from the area, and all tour operators have cancelled upcoming trips. Greece's Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis says there's no magic defence against climate change.
The next few days, especially today, tomorrow, Thursday, will be difficult days. After that, I hope that the conditions will help us more, and that is why we obviously remain on high alert. We know that things will probably get worse, not better, with warmer temperatures, more droughts, stronger winds. The morphology of our terrain makes putting out fires extremely difficult in many cases, so we have another difficult summer ahead of us.
Well, meanwhile, in Italy, wildfires forced the temporary closure of Sicily's Palermo airport, with only a limited number of flights given permission to take off. It's since reopened. And south of Europe, in Algeria, the number of deaths because of wildfires has risen to 34, including 10 soldiers. In fact, 8,000 firefighters are working in Algeria to bring the blazes under control. And in Tunisia, families have been forced to flee their homes as wildfires burn across mountain regions. Here at home, HSBC will cut its interest rates from tonight, making it the first high street bank to act following last week's better-than-expected inflation figures. The bank told GBNews the new rates will come into effect from midnight. It comes after figures last week showed inflation was at a 16-month low in the year to June. You're up to date on TV, online, DAB+ radio and the TuneIn app. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tomorrow's news tonight now in our Media Buzz, and let's kick off with a first look at the front pages, which are just in. We'll start with the Metro. Ring of Fire, the headline, as reports on the situation in Greece. At least 24 people have died now in blazes, too, in Algeria. The Eye reports that Sunak will delay a major recycle plan after the Conservatives' eco-backlash. The PM has postponed a flagship policy forcing manufacturers to pay for recycling. Oh!
Finally!
And it's Rebecca Reid!
It's taken 2 years of me waiting for them to get on the front page on a day when I'm here. I'm so happy.
Oh my goodness, Rebecca Reid.
Finally.
This is great. How your childhood changes the way you love. So let's look. So this is the superstar panel, by the way. Rebecca Reid in the house alongside Ranald Jayawardena and Baroness Foster. Very excited. What's the column about, Rebecca?
It's about how your attachment style can impact your relationship choices. And so as somebody who is currently getting divorced, can I not make the same mistakes again by understanding where I went wrong the first time?
OK, you put it all out there. I love that. Have to buy the Eye tomorrow. But look, a Daily Mail investigation has blown open a scandal at the heart of Britain's legal system. In undercover clips, several immigration lawyers working right across the UK can be seen offering to make bogus asylum claims for up to £10,000 a pop, making a mockery of the government's plans to stop the boats.
No, the problem is this, he doesn't have anything now. So we have to make evidence. We have to, you can say, we have to create something. So we have to, this is our job.
Yeah, you have good success rate, so I explained to him.
Yeah, we have good success rate.
Do you have good name in the Home Office?
Everything, perfectly.
The problem in Punjab, I'll make something up, yeah?
And bring it to me.
And give it to you, and you will do the rest.
Yes.
It's an absolutely extraordinary investigation, which actually saw the Prime Minister himself, Sunak, hit back on Twitter earlier, tweeting that those lawyers were propping up a system of exploitation that profits from getting people to the UK illegally, before reminding his readers of the illegal immigration bill and criticising Labour too. And while illegal immigrants can face jail for making false claims, these cowboy lawyers who encourage, facilitate and profit from them will only face professional sanctions. So, Ranil Jayawardena, I mean, Sunak has taken a lot of flack today for pointing out what we are facing from the lefty lawyers who are always backed by Labour. But he's right, isn't he, on this?
He's absolutely right. I mean, he's exposed today in what he said, all of the left piling in because they want to defend this crooked regime that's led by lefty lawyers. You know, the lefty lawyers have been saying, don't change the law, don't tighten up, let anyone come to this country, lose control of our borders. We've not only legislated now to tighten up control, but we've also now seen them in the act £10,000 ago to beat the system. That's not right. I mean, I think people of this country support people who come here legally, play by the rules, who want to contribute to our economy. But that's not this. And the lefty lawyers have to be taken to task now.
I mean, Rebecca Reid, I can't understand. You're sceptical about this, but we saw that video. We saw what the lawyers were saying.
Yeah, so I have two objections. Number one, I don't see any lefty lawyers. I see maybe an opportunist, but this is a person apparently a person who runs a multi-million-pound property empire with his wife. Not very lefty. We hate landlords. Drives a BMW with personalised number plates. Not very lefty. We like bicycles. And sends his son to Eton. Not very lefty. We like farm schools where we just learn about grain.
Sounds like North London Labour.
That is not a classic lefty at all. That is somebody who's an opportunist making money, if that is what is happening. And the only thing I will say is that if you watch that video, you hear very little of what the person asks the lawyer. You only hear the lawyer's responses. And I'm a little bit queasy without having seen a totally unedited version of that video.
Baroness Foster, what do you make of this?
This is the tip of the iceberg. This is not the first time. There have been programmes in the past, I think over the last 2 decades. We know that there have been lawyers and they have been complicit in providing visas and passports. And obviously
it's like a business, isn't it?
Oh, it's a massive business. And there are doctors who are also involved. All of them, in my view, if they are found to be guilty of these crimes, should be imprisoned. They should be struck off. They should be nowhere near anybody. And I think it's appalling. We had about 74,000 asylum applications in 2022. I think it was nearly double the number from, 2019. 3/4 of those applications were successful, and I think those that weren't, 1 in 4 or something, have gone to appeal. Why would the public, why would any of us have any confidence that these people were going through the appropriate processes and that people who were actually going to be coming here were actually legitimate? I think this is absolutely appalling. I think we need a proper inquiry about this, and I think the Law Society and any organisations to do with lawyers and solicitors in England and Wales and Scotland as well, I think they need to get their heads together, they need to get round the table and they need to root this out.
Because, Ranil, it does show just what the government is facing. This is a soft-touch system, isn't it?
Well, for too long it has been. I mean, it's absolutely right that the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary have tightened up the rules now and have pushed forward the Rwanda scheme, which, thanks to members of the House of Lords, is now law, and we need to see how that works. I hope that that will deliver change. But, who were the people campaigning against it? Who were the people who were saying it was wrong, that it was unjust? It was the lefty lawyers. And we can now see why they were doing it, because they're making so much money from it.
I think we're talking about two different things here. There are absolutely bleeding-hearted liberals like me who want to keep the system available to anybody who needs to seek asylum. This person is not a lefty lawyer. This is an opportunist. This is somebody who is making money where they see money. This is an extension of the human trafficking. This is a more legal version of human trafficking. It's making money from desperate people.
Well, these people
and nobody's going to say this is a good idea. Nobody's going to say this is a good guy.
These people undermine those who do need to come to this country because they truly are fleeing persecution, and that's why we've got to have a strong, controlled border.
But all of the lefty lawyers who are behind these constant behind this constant barrage of frustration of being able to deport people, Rebecca, they know.
There's a difference between...
They know that the vast majority of these folk are economic migrants pretending to be asylum seekers.
It is not the same. It is not the same.
We need to remember that the cost, not just the human cost, the physical cost, because these lawyers are doing this through legal aid. Legal aid is the money that the hard-working taxpayers pay into the system
I would just say there is a difference.
People who are legitimate.
There is a difference.
Not to represent people who are not.
I totally get what you're saying. I feel there's a big difference between opposing being able to move somebody to Rwanda against their will and thinking that this is a good or fair system. Those are not the same thing.
Nothing to do with Rwanda.
The Met Police have revealed today that Just Stop Oil's 13-week-long campaign of eco-terrorism has cost the British taxpayer more than £7.7 million. Oh, my goodness, that makes me so angry. But it's no wonder the eco-yobs remain emboldened, with the MSM whipping up climate hysteria over the weekend through its reporting of the Rhodes wildfire. And just yesterday, Sly News invited a spokesman for Just Stop Oil onto their show for what was a cosy sit-down with a bizarre twist. Watch.
See, unless people do things that are slightly transgressive, non-violently transgressive, people don't notice the difference. So if I do this, Kay, if I sit on the floor in the studio, it's a bit different, isn't it? And it might get noticed because I'm transgressing the rules of an interview. People don't normally do this in an interview, do they? But it's completely non-violent. I'm not threatening anyone, but it's a bit different.
A bit different or completely unhinged?
I'm going to sit on the floor. When we come back, I'm doing the rest of the cross-legged on the floor. No, I'm sorry, I can't. I can't bring myself to do it. I can't bring myself to do it.
I want them cancelled. I'm sitting on the floor? Absolutely. Just Stop Oil, cancelled.
Well, that eco-terrorist, that's the difference. Like criminals, so we're allowed to cancel them. Baroness Foster Randall, Joe Rebecca Reid, thank you so much. And do stand by, because coming up, Britain's borders pimped up for £10,000 a pop, of course. And Sadiq Khan is going to now be focusing his attention on deciding to call everyone mate in order to stop sexism. So is that really the right focus for London's failed mayor? That's what we'll debate when my superstar panel return. But next, one man who knows about censorship for wrong thinkers, former Mumford & Sons rocker Winston Marshall, the musician and podcaster, joins me live for his take on the Farage banking scandal, climate hysteria and the new country music anthem that's got woke-topians fuming. Back after this.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle. Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point.
And action.
Sergeant Rebecca Reid, my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Tom Bauer and his unrivalled royal analysis coming up. But breaking tonight, NatWest Chief Executive Dame Alison Rose has confirmed she was the source for the BBC's incorrect story on Nigel Farage's bank accounts, but has refused to resign after receiving backing from her board. Howard Davies, the chairman of NatWest Group, said Dame Rose's collusion with the BBC for its fake news was a regrettable error of judgment, but refused to sack her. And tonight, Chancellor Jeremy Hunt has said he was concerned about Rose's leadership at NatWest, which is partially owned by the taxpayer, remember, while 3 other cabinet ministers said she had to go. Farage discovered he was debanked for his political views, and my next guest, Winston Marshall, suffered his own battle with establishers and silencers when he was forced to quit globe-trotting band Mumford & Sons for tweeting support of a book that decried the violent Antifa movement. He's since gone on to become world-renowned yet again, this time in his pursuit of free speech, open debate and truth. And actually, Winston, I think what we've seen with Farage over the past few weeks is actually just another example, isn't it, of how free speech has been stifled.
I think it's far more profound. To compare it to my situation, it's not really just. This is his bank account. This he's specifically because of his political opinions. And not only that, but Dame Alice Rose also was revealing details that broke the confidentiality of the NatWest client, Coots client. You mentioned that it's 38% owned by, or it is 38% owned by us, the taxpayer. So it's very concerning that, what I should say is they are accountable not just to the other clients, but to all of us taxpayers in this scenario. And if you don't have a bank account, you cannot work, you cannot live, you cannot function in this country or anywhere. It should alarm absolutely everyone. And another institution that has been, I think, disgraced is BBC. Only in May of this year, they launched BBC Verify, which was it was sort of a crusade against misinformation, disinformation, or what we normal people call lies and untruths. And I remember thinking at the time, aren't they? Isn't it their job to discern what's not true and what is true? Well, it seems that BBC Verify have a lot of work to do at home before they they launched
they
their
made
crusade.
themselves a hostage to fortune, didn't they?
Exactly. Well, I should say fair play to Simon Jack, the BBC reporter. He's apologised for that, and journalists make mistakes. So
yeah, and look, he was dealing with the chief executive of a massive banking group. I can understand why he may have taken her word for it, but he shouldn't have, and that's the point. That's what journalism needs to be, and it's very interesting you bring up BBC Verify because they should have verified the facts. I think one thing we do need to discuss, though, is that what really needs to happen in a debate like this is the left and the right need to come together, and that's not happening often. And the level of debate in this country, and I've seen it myself over the past few days, is becoming really toxic. And we've seen another shocking example, Winston, which I know you wanted to talk about, of Novara Media's Aaron Bastani, a regular on this channel, even though he's on the hard left, let's be honest about it, but he's a nice guy, claiming that he's been physically attacked today for his views. And I think it is really important, isn't it, that we all speak up against this toxicity, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum.
Yeah, what's happened to Bastani today is absolutely repugnant. As you mentioned, he's a contributor here at the GB News. He's the founder of Novara Media. He also came out in defence of Farage in this situation. So he is someone who is clearly principled. And I'm sure I join you in wishing him a full recovery. He's punched in the street by a stranger. It seems like it's pretty sure that it's because of this Bastani's political opinions. And if it happened to anyone at GB News or any other media group, it's very shocking for the whole group. So I would like to wish Bastani a speedy recovery, and also wishing well to everyone at Novara Media who must be completely shocked by this horrible incident.
Yeah, there are certain moments, I think, where it's really important the left and the right come together, and there was another moment when Novara Media was deplatformed by YouTube, and lots of folk on the right, including me, spoke up for their right to be back on that social media giant, and they did end up being there. But of course, sometimes I do feel there's a lot of silence on the left when these issues affect folk on the right. That's what I'm going to say about it. But look, I wanted to talk to you briefly, actually, about this US country singer, Jason Aldean. Now, I love him, love his new track. It's about American patriotism, law and order, anti-wokeness. It soared in the charts. This is despite being cancelled by country music television, effectively for thought crimes in the music video. So have a little look at this. Now, Winston, I'm looking at that video. Clearly, it's a little bit political, but this has seen lots of calls for Jason to be cancelled in America. Why?
It's tempting to frame this as a cancel culture story, and indeed, he released the video Friday before last. It was dropped from rotation by CMT, Country Music Television, on Monday without an explanation or reason given why. But the hoo-ha around this story is the way that people are interpreting the video. I should say he's Streisanded up to the top of the charts, and I'm sure he's very happy about that. But he's been accused of racism. Apparently, the location where the music video was shot in 1927, there was a horrific lynching of a black boy. And they are accusing him of somehow endorsing that. That would be as ludicrous as there's an upcoming production at the Ford Theatre in Washington, D.C. I saw. It'd be like linking that production to the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. One article in CNN, there's an op-ed that links the video to the KKK, Charlottesville, January 6th, and a whole host of extreme events when there's nothing of the sort. In fact, in the video, there's montages of news footage of violent crime in America, which, according to the FBI, is on the rise. Since 2020, there's been a big spike in crime and violent crime. And the footage in the video shows rioting in Georgia, the state of Georgia, from January of this year, when 150 black-clad protesters attacked what has been dubbed Cop City, which is a training facility for police officers. One of the protesters who was alleged to have shot at the state troopers was then shot and killed, and Atlanta descended into violence, and that's the footage used. They ignore that, and I came back from America this morning, and it seems to me that there's two Americas. There's one America that sees this rise in crime, and also sees when the media ignores it, and there's another America that cannot help but see race and the original sin of America in absolutely everything, and it's that clear divide. It's kind of sad to see.
Well, it is, because if you call someone like Aldean racist for what you've just explained clearly isn't, it absolutely devalues the term, doesn't it? But look, absolutely fascinating stuff from former Mumford & Sons member turned free speech champion, Winston Marshall. Great to have you here. Now, look, Michael Gove has been Marmite for some, and that's why he's actually up for 2 gongs tonight. So is he going to be our greatest Britain or Union Jackass nominee? Maybe both. And can you guess why? It's connected to the weather, which you can have a look at now.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your GB News weather forecast. Well, the next few days it's set to remain unsettled across the UK, further spells of rain, but in between we will see some sunshine. Reason for the unsettled conditions is these 2 areas of low pressure, really not going to go very far over the next few days. And with a northerly wind, it's going to feel pretty chilly at times, especially by night under some clearer skies. But for parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, actually tonight, we will remain fairly cloudy here with some outbreaks of rain. But elsewhere, relatively dry and clear, and as I mentioned, under the clear skies, feeling pretty chilly for this point in the year. Towns and cities staying in double figures, but out towards the countryside, we could see lows falling down to around 5 to 6 degrees. But compensation will be, for most of us, we'll start the day with some sunshine on Wednesday. Still this area of cloud and showers across parts of southern Scotland and northern England, and that will continue to linger here for much of the day. But elsewhere, as I mentioned, some sunshine. But for Northern Ireland, cloud will thicken as the morning goes on, with some rain arriving here by lunchtime, and that cloud and rain also spreading into parts of Wales and southwest England as the afternoon goes on. So here, we've combined with a strengthening wind, feeling pretty chilly as the afternoon moves in. But elsewhere in the sunshine, not feeling too bad for the time of year, with temperatures around average. And then as we go into Thursday, this band of rain will sweep its way across the UK, bringing further spells of showers behind it, and temperatures all the time near average.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, coming up in Uncancelled, Tom Bower gives his unrivalled analysis on whether a blitz of Commonwealth tours could prove the King's masterstroke, and he'll give his take on Labour's gender ID flip-flops too. Tom's one of Britain's top journalists. He's live shortly. But next, in the Media Buzz, Londoners want Sadiq Khan to focus on cleaning up the city, so why is he wasting time on money on cringeworthy campaigns to address sexism? My superstar panel gets stuck into the failed mayor's mate campaign. I'll show you it. Plus, we'll have more of tomorrow's newspaper front pages with the latest on the Farage Coots scandal. Don't go anywhere.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners on TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my new show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m, where real people get to meet those in power and hold them to account. Every week, we'll be hearing your views from up and down the country in the real world. Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle.
Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Now, let's return to tomorrow's news tonight in our media buzz, and more front pages are in. The Daily Telegraph, leading with NatWest CEO Dame Alison Rose's admission that she did leak my colleague Nigel Farage's personal banking details to the BBC, but with her board publicly backing her, she insists she won't be resigning. What planet are they on? Asked the Daily Mail as the paper slams the Bar Council for attacking Rishi Sunak after he criticised bent migration lawyers exposed by the Mail as part of their special investigation. And there, on the Farage story, what planet is she on? My superstar panel return now. Conservative pair Baroness Foster, the former Conservative Cabinet Minister Ranil Jayawardena, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Now, you would have thought failed London Mayor Sadiq Khan would be focused on cleaning up his city. But alas, virtue signallers cannot help themselves. Khan has been blasted for his latest distraction from doing proper work, this time a bizarre attempt to protect women from sexist men by magically using the phrase mate.
Bro, you need to lay down the ground rules straight away.
Is that what you did with that girl you took out in Shoreditch?
Well, nah, she ghosted me. Probably wouldn't know a good thing if it slapped her in the face. Someone I'd gladly do if I see her again. Mate, what did I do now?
Stop! Just stop, man. You can't be saying that, bro. That's serious stuff.
Obviously, I'd never do it.
Yeah, but just saying it is bad enough, man. You know that.
Yeah, I understand.
Now, feminism and women's safety campaigners have criticised Khan for the campaign, including author Joan Smith, who sat on his board on violence against women and girls, who slammed it as patronising, totally inadequate, and a waste of public money. So, Baroness Foster, is this some sort of virtue signalling, social engineering gone wrong, or actually a genuine bid to end sexism?
I think that now he's being practically defeated on ULEZ. He's now trying to take everybody's mind off that, and he's moved on to this. This is, in my view, we hear of gesture politics. I call this empty gesture politics. I think it's dreadful in the sense that women are seen as victims all the time, because we're not. Clearly, there's a responsibility to make sure the streets are safe or people can travel well. Notwithstanding that all men are walking around behaving like this, which, again, is not true. So the comedian that came up with this, I did see a clip of this, and I couldn't see anything that was funny about it. And I think, as I said, it undermines the masculinity of... What do young boys think that when they see these sorts of things? I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous.
You quite like this, though, Rebecca, as a feminist campaigner?
I do. I mean, I have mixed feelings because I really, really dislike Sadiq Khan, and I think it's a little bit hypocritical because one of the most unsafe things about living in London is how hard it is to get a taxi to your door because of low traffic neighbourhoods and how difficult they've made it for Uber to operate, etc., etc. So he hasn't helped women's safety, broadly speaking. However, I I do think that there was a campaign in the mid-noughties to get people to stop using gay as a pejorative term. So do you remember people used to be like, oh my God, that's so gay? And people don't do it anymore. And that was a result of a campaign led by Hilary Duff, which was a bit cringy, like this, but it did help build a sense that it's not okay to say certain things about certain people. And I have heard male friends say to other male friends about when they've made a comment about someone's body or that they would like to hit a woman in the face or something like that, jokingly, being like, oh, mate, no. And it does make a tonal shift. And there are a lot of good men who are already doing that. So it's not perfect. Sadiq didn't fix sexism today, but it is better than nothing. It's an attempt.
Ranel, you say this is a huge waste of public money and is just virtue signalling.
Well, I mean, totally. I mean, Sadiq Khan says that he's not got the money to run TfL, that he's got to put ULEZ in, that he's got to now scrap day travel cars to stop people coming into the city and spending their money. I mean, it's absolutely crazy that he'd run another campaign. And look, I mean, is it always the state's job to do this stuff? I mean, what are the fathers of these boys that are behaving improperly doing?
Well, clearly not that.
Because, you know, the truth is, as my noble friend rightly says, you know, the vast majority of men and boys behave properly.
Okay,
but for
but
those
1 in
that
4
don't,
women in this
that's what we've got to tackle.
1 in 4 women will be sexually assaulted.
But are we saying that it's? Are we saying that it's 1 in 4 men and boys? Because we're not.
No,
Baroness Foster's challenging
I am
Rebecca, Baroness Foster's challenging that figure.
The amount of misinformation that seems to come out on all sorts of topics. I do not believe that 1 in 4 women in this country are basically being assaulted
That's according to Women's Aid and Refuge,
according to women,
which are 2 of the biggest charities for women's protection in the country.
I understand that they're the biggest charities. I'd like to know what real evidence they have. I mean, people are doing all sorts of surveys, and then you look at it, and, you know, we've got 35 million or 30 million women in this country, and you see they've done a survey or they've done a straw poll, and they've asked 1,500 people.
OK, well, let's take a different statistic. Let's take the fact that the thing that a woman...
I think it's truly over-exaggerated.
If a woman is murdered in this country, she is statistically most likely by a huge margin to be murdered by a man, and usually a romantic partner. So there is... If that's the most dangerous thing that could... But that's objectively true.
That is correct.
That's absolutely objectively true. So there is a danger to women from men in this country, and something should be done about that.
A very small group of men,
I'm not saying this is the cure, but there is a problem and we need to do something.
OK. Now, look, Channel 4 has quite the track record when it comes to releasing vulgar programmes. Who could forget Naked Education for kids, which saw adults stripping off and... Oh, goodness, I can't even cope with that.
No.
Move on. Move quickly on, please. But the woke broadcaster may have released its most tasteless show yet. So this is British Miracle Meat, hosted by Greg Wallace, which left some viewers disgusting after the spoof programme saw the former MasterChef host appearing to sample human flesh. And in another sign of the broadcaster's disdain for its viewers, no one at home was warned the show was fiction. The surreal mockumentary saw Greg and his fellow chef visiting a factory that manufactured engineered human meat before the duo met with fake, financially challenged families who were said to be selling their flesh as donors. And in true Channel 4 fashion, it contained a snidey Brexit dig for good measure. Watch.
Now, a new line of affordable protein is hitting our shelves. This is engineered human meat. This must be a relatively new process.
It is. I mean, under EU law, we couldn't possibly operate machines like this due to legislation, but thankfully now we're out, we can harvest people and we can pay them for their flesh.
Looks great. Come on. Right. Like a knife through butter, that is.
Oh, wow.
So Channel 4 fails the taste test yet again, and I'd say yet another reminder of why it's time the government sold off the broadcaster.
What? You didn't like a programme, so we should sell it?
Well, you know what I think. You know what I think on this, Rebecca. Any excuse.
Literally anything. The Pope Fox fan, sell it.
And a Baroness Foster do. Stand by, because coming up, what do Michael Gove and Barbie actress Margot Robbie have in common? Well, they're both nominated for a Gong in tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jack. That's tenuous link. I'll tell you why shortly. But next, in Uncancelled, one of Britain's top journalists, Tom Bauer, casts his expert eye over reports that senior royals will blitz the Commonwealth with a series of tours. Could it prove to be King Charles's masterstroke in dealing with all of those issues caused by Harry and Meghan? But first, Farage's banking scandal gets the Bauer treatment. Don't go anywhere. Back in 2 minutes.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Uncancelled now. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. And breaking tonight, NatWest Chief Executive Dame Alison Rose has admitted she made a serious error of judgment by leaking information about Nigel Farage to the BBC, with the board issuing a further apology to Nigel and admitting Rose should never have spoken to the BBC journalists. However, Dame Alison's job future with the bank appears to be safe at this point, with the chairman of the NatWest Group, Howard Davies, saying, as Rose recognises, she should not have spoken in the way she did. It was a regrettable error of judgment on her part. However, after careful reflection, the board has concluded that it retains full confidence in Ms Rose as CEO of the bank. Well, one of Britain's top journalists, Tom Bower, in the studio with me now. But Tom, is Rose's position tenable when you've got even the Chancellor now, Jeremy Hunt, making it very clear via sources that he doesn't think she's behaved appropriately?
Well, I hope it's not tenable. She should go, Peter Flavel, the head of Coots, should go, and Howard Davies, a well-known coward, should also go.
Do you agree with Farage that all three should?
Of course they should, but I mean, I think we're also missing the major point here. We keep on emphasising tonight that she shouldn't have mentioned that he had a financial problem to Simon Jack. The real problem is not that comment, it's the compiling of that report about Nigel Farage. What on earth is Coots doing? Spending money, thousands, tens of thousands of pounds, compiling a 40-page report on Nigel Farage, full of lies, full of inaccuracies, full of innuendos. What is the bank doing? So when Alison Rose says that she hadn't read the reputation report, well, it's got to ask, well, why didn't you? Why did you not, on such a high-profile man, why do you not want to know why has he been kicked out of the bank? And why has she taken so long to apologise for the minor infraction of saying, well, he didn't have £1 million, so he couldn't stay a customer? Why had she not said, this is wrong, to actually start investigating personalities like Farage, and is wrong to start passing all these innuendos which are false? Well, look, that's what really troubles me. And, you know, the real problem is this, you know, for people like you and me in this country, we're getting a rotten service from banks. Branches are closing, has a terrible effect on the high street. They're constantly incapable of answering our queries. You try to get on the line and ask them questions. I have the most dreadful problems in my own accounts with HSBC, who for a whole day just lie and all the rest of it. So what this Farage thing has shown is not just Alison Rose wrongly saying something at dinner,
but the culture of the banks, the way they are failing our country and us as individuals in the high street. That has got to end, and that is what the government really should start now as an urgent measure, telling the banks, forget the way you're operating, we're not putting up with it anymore.
No, indeed. And I have a particular issue with HSBC, given they closed my business account without any explanation as to why.
It's appalling. And the problem is you have no recourse.
Nope.
And there are thousands of people in this country all the time pulling their hair out, 100%. Angry about the way the banks are behaving.
Now, look, Tom, big royal news this week. The royal family has announced or is at least confirmed privately, that it's going to be on a 2-year blitz of formal visits by senior royals to strengthen support from the Commonwealth and the rest of the world. King Charles and Queen Camilla made their first official visit to Germany back in March, but are yet to visit any of the 14 Commonwealth countries outside the UK, which is where the help of other senior royals, including the Prince and Princess of Wales, will come in handy, with soft democracy seen as the best way to maintain and protect the Commonwealth. Charles has lots of work to do, Tom, of course, because Harry and Meghan did cause a heck of a lot of damage.
Well, I think it's a bit of a success for our programme, actually, because for weeks I've been saying that Charles has been a complete failure on re-establishing proper relations with the Commonwealth, because, as I showed in my book some years ago, he really disliked the Commonwealth. He'd go to the white Commonwealth countries, but he would never go to Africa, didn't like the Caribbean. So that is why, on the whole now, the Commonwealth relationship with Britain has suffered with the late Queen's death. So I really welcome...
Who loved travelling.
Who loved it, and they loved her, but they know that Charles is not interested. And it was a New Zealander who actually brought it to Charles' attention that he'd lose the Commonwealth, McKinnon, who you must say, Don McKinnon, who told him, you know, unless you start showing interest in the Commonwealth, it's all going to break up. So the real problem now is, I don't think the Commonwealth countries believe King Charles's sincerity. I think they will believe Kate and William, but I do think that if Charles and Camilla go to Kenya or perhaps go to Canada, I don't think it's going to set the house on fire. William and Kate can do a huge amount of good.
So they are the secret weapon to be deployed.
And I think
they're the perfect age, aren't they?
They're perfect age, but the real problem is that Queen Camilla is not very keen on travelling long distances. She doesn't like actually working very hard in these Commonwealth countries. He is not that keen.
She struggles with the heat, though, doesn't she?
She struggles with the heat, she struggles with jet lag. He is not that keen on going it is a major problem, because the Commonwealth is a very, very valuable international institution. It's beset with the problem that its Secretary-General, the woman, Patricia Scotland, is not much respected, and it's got the need now to be revitalised.
Yeah, so you are tough. I mean, you've obviously written about Charles, and you have some issues with his work ethic, and so you're presumably saying pull your finger out here, because the late Queen, of course, travelled extensively right into her late 80s. Charles has been waiting for this job his entire life. Obviously, he is elderly, but still
he's fit, though.
Isn't he?
Of course he's fit. And he works very hard on lots of other things. It's just that he's not particularly keen on the Commonwealth, and that is a great tragedy. But I think that the sort of pressure that we've had in our conversations, the criticism that he's really got to start working for the Commonwealth to survive, has finally percolated through to the palace. And let us hope that they do a blitz next year, that there will be really some very successful tours, and he can engage with people, Charles. I mean, that is one of his great qualities, that when he meets people, they actually afterwards really enjoy meeting him, and they remember his interest in their lives, and he's just got to do more of it to make sure the Commonwealth survives.
He's got to get on that
He's got to get on.
Get on that plane.
In a comfortable plane, though, don't worry.
Oh, exactly.
He won't be on Ryanair at the back.
No, I'm not shedding a tear for him, believe me. Tom Bower, thank you so much, Tom. We'll speak next week. But it's time now to reveal tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. My superstar panel return. Baroness Foster, who's your Greatest Britain nominee tonight?
My nominee tonight is Michael Gove, who has said he is definitely going on holiday to Greece, and I shall definitely be going to Mallorca next week.
Good on you. Yeah, this is the moment Gove made these comments.
I'm planning to go to Greece in just over a week's time.
And you're not at all worried?
No, I'm not, no.
OK.
Good on him. Let's travel. I couldn't agree more. Ranald Jayawarden, who's your Greatest Britain nominee?
So my nominee are the Mercure Hotel, who this week stood up for common sense and said that a biological man shouldn't be in a woman's changing room, and acted kindly by giving that person a key card to a unisex changing room so that they wouldn't have to go into the male changing room either.
Ah, yes, we spoke about this incident with Lawrence Fox earlier in the show, actually, and yeah, the person in question wants the staff member to go on all sorts of sensitivity training and things. I think it was an honest mistake. Rebecca Reid, your Greatest Britain nominee.
Mine is an honorary one. It's Margot Robbie, though she did live in Clapham for a long time, so she's really, really an honorary Brit. It's in celebration of the Barbie movie, which has had a fantastic opening. Broadly speaking, well received. Not by it's made the right people across. I'm seeing it next week. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. But mostly
very
because
woke, apparently.
I'm going to love it. But it's the biggest box office opening for a female director of all time for Greta Gerwig, and Margot Robbie produced it. So all in all, it's been a real win for girl power.
OK, well, I'm going to go for Ranald Jayawarden and the Mercure Hotel, because I think it's very important that these sorts of companies don't throw their employees under the bus for making honest mistakes, which maybe aren't even really mistakes. Baroness Fonster, your Union Jackass nominee, please.
One of my favourite politicians, Sadiq Khan, for his ridiculous campaign that urges men to say mate when they are being sexist.
Yeah, we spoke about that earlier. Understand that. Ranald Jayawarden, your Union Jackass nominee?
It's got to be the lefty lawyer charging £10,000 to get people in to the country through the crooked system that the lawyers themselves have cooked up.
Rebecca, I think you're struggling to understand the concept of champagne socialists.
Landlords aren't lefties, fundamentally.
Champagne socialists.
You can't be both.
Go and look at who hangs out with Keir Starmer.
North London Labour.
Yeah, exactly. And Rebecca Reid, your Union Jackass nominee.
Mine is Michael Gove, because I think it is the height of hubris to go on television and be like, I'm definitely going on holiday next week, because you don't know what's going to happen, the fires might get worse, and if somebody goes and something terrible happens, you're going to look really stupid. You are not in charge of travel, you're in charge of levelling up. Go do some levelling up.
Oh, my goodness, I couldn't disagree more, because if we start buying into the sort of propaganda porn that permeated through this country and actually through the world during the COVID pandemic when it comes to weather and travel. Do you know what we're going to do, Rebecca? We are going to destroy industries again. The travel industry is only just getting on its feet. And actually, what I am so disgusted about is the number of people, I'm not talking about you specifically, Rebecca, the number of people who just seem to want to tear travel down, to put fear in people's hearts.
I love holidays.
Travel,
I love not working.
Go.
I love lying very flat
There's
and
loads
very
of
still
people
on a
living
beach.
there. It's going to be fine.
Just don't go to the place that's actually actively on fire. Corfu seems fine, just not a Vera.
OK, well, look, it's a double win for Ranald Jayawarden. It's the lefty lawyer. Look, obviously, innocent until proven guilty, but the video did not look good. Baroness Foster, Ranald Jayawarden and Rebecca Reid, my fabulous superstar panel, thank you so much. Thank you for your company. Big lineup tomorrow night. Lee Anderson and Angela Levin. Next up, those headliners. Good night.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your GB News weather forecast. Well, the next few days it's set to remain unsettled across the UK, further spells of rain, but in between we will see some sunshine. Reason for the unsettled conditions is these two areas of low pressure, really not going to go very far over the next few days. And with a northerly wind, it's going to feel pretty chilly at times, especially by night under some clearer skies. But for parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England, actually tonight, we will remain fairly cloudy here with some outbreaks of rain. But elsewhere, relatively dry and clear, and as I mentioned, under the clear skies, feeling pretty chilly for this point in the year. Towns and cities staying in double figures, but out towards the countryside, we could see lows falling down to around 5 to 6 degrees. But compensation will be, for most of us, we'll start the day with some sunshine on Wednesday. Still this area of cloud and showers across parts of southern Scotland and northern England, and that will continue to linger here for much of the day. But elsewhere, as I mentioned, some sunshine. But for Northern Ireland, cloud will thicken as the morning goes on, with some rain arriving here by lunchtime, and that cloud and rain also spreading into parts of Wales and southwest England as the afternoon goes on. So here, we've combined with a strengthening wind, feeling pretty chilly as the afternoon moves in. But elsewhere in the sunshine, not feeling too bad for the time of year, with temperatures around average.
And then as we go into Thursday, this band of rain will sweep its way across the UK, bringing further spells of showers behind it and temperatures all the time near average.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point. But
and action.
Sergeant Reed, my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views, and often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day.